Good afternoon, my dear friends. This is Amit Bhattacharya, Professor of English, University of Gaurbanga, welcoming you to the third part of our discussion of Kamala Das's poem, An Introduction. In fact, by way of recapitulation, I must first tell you about the first and second sections of the poem that I have actually almost arbitrarily divided the poem into for the sake of the convenience of our discussion. Now, if you remember, in the first part of my discussion, I talked about the political aspect of a woman's life in India. Obviously, the time frame that we are talking about is the 1960s, because this was a poem, an introduction, that was published in 1965, and it has been taken from the first volume of her poems, Kamala Das's poems, that is Someone in Calcutta. Page numbers 59 to 60. Now, Kamala Das's poetic persona says that she doesn't know politics but can repeat the names of the political movers and shakers, like Nehru and his ilk. And it shows how women were not only expected to know politics, but also they were not accepted if they knew politics. But at the same time, the act of repeating the names of those in power, like days of week or names of months, actually gave to the woman persona a kind of a mimic, subversive possibility, whereby she could undermine the exclusivist political discourse of India. Now, similarly, the first part of the woman's life in India, a traditional girl, an Indian, not brown, born in Malabar, who speaks in 3 languages, writes in 2, and drinks in 1. As Kamala Das herself was, was not expected to write because she was a woman, and not expected to write in English because she was an Indian woman. Even though her poetry could adequately express her joys, her fears, her longings, and that too in the so-called alien tongue of India, English, she could do it. Even then, the cultural categorizers didn't want her to write in English. Similarly, how she was a girl and then she grew up, and that growth was also investigated by the social categorizers, the norm-giving social categorizers, is also pointed out. And how the woman persona often tried unsuccessfully to ignore her womanliness is also pointed out, and we have discussed those portions. So, in today's discussion, I am going to talk about the love life. The life of a woman subject who has desires. Even though Kamala Das's critics have often been dazzled by the white hot brilliance of her erotica, often they fail to understand how sexual urge, sexual desire often leads to the woman as a social being to the threshold of guilt, or at least a kind of a socially induced feeling of guilt. So without further ado, let's discuss the poem. I will take the help of one of my students who will read out the relevant portions, and then I will obviously try to discuss the nitty-gritties of the text.
Yes.
Okay.
I met a man, loved him. Call him not by any name. He is every man who wants a woman, just as I am every woman who seeks love. In him the hungry haste of
Wait a
rivers.
minute. I met a man. The name is not given, and according to the poet, the name is not important, because this man is a representative of every man, every male creature, just as she is the representative of every woman. Now, in the case of the man, the male, it is, he is every man who wants a woman as a sex partner, as a sexual partner, as a partner in love, as a beloved. I'm coming back to this word beloved. Okay. But in the case of the woman, she is every woman who seeks love. Now the use of these words, seeking love, is important. In the case of the male, the desire was purely physical. At least that is how this poem describes it. But in the case of the woman, it is more comprehensive, seeking love. And we are reminded of the previous portion, one of the previous lines of this poem, when the woman persona asked for love, not knowing what else to ask for. And what did she get? A premature marriage. The introduction into her life of an utter stranger of 16 years old, and a youth of 16 years, who was thrust into this bedroom and the door was closed. So, this figure, this male figure, that he is not either the father figure or the husband figure, can very easily be conjectured, because he is every man who wants a woman. Now, let's go on. In him
the hungry.
you see, there are ellipsis points. In him, then ellipsis points, the hungry rivers haste.
Hungry
Yes?
haste of rivers.
Yes, hungry haste of rivers. So, the haste, the eagerness of the male who seeks every woman, a woman, any woman. On the contrary, in the female speaker, the poetic persona, in me,
at this point,
patience, yes, the patience of the ocean.
Okay.
So, again here we get to see the use of the ellipsis points, because the ellipsis points introduce an element of multivalence, an element of the unsaid in the textual fabric. Now, in me, that is in the woman speaker, there is the patience of the ocean. Okay, if we want to go beyond the obvious sexual dimension of these two remarks, in the male, the haste of the river that flows into the ocean; in the woman, the patience of the ocean who waits for and receives the flow of the river. Obviously, the reference is to male ejaculation. But there is another aspect to this, because the patience is not only for the sexual act to be performed, it is also for love. This love that the woman persona has always sought, this love that the woman persona has never got adequately. In other poems of Kamala Das, we will get to see the introduction of the grandmother figures who could give this woman, that is Kamala Das, or her woman persona, this interested love which does not ask for anything in return. But from her male counterpart, the poetic persona seems to say that she has not ever received unconditional love. If it is a father figure, then love is contingent upon, consequent upon obedience, some kind of a paternal right. If it is the husband figure, then again submission. And if you remember another poem by Kamala Das, that is the Old Playhouse, obviously the performance of the wifely duties. Okay. So, in me, the haste of the patience of the ocean. Yes, go on.
Who are you? I ask each and every one. The answer is, it is I. Anywhere.
Wait. Who are you? I ask everyone. Obviously, if the immediate context is the relationship that she has, the sexual liaison that she has with the male, obviously the person of whom the poetic persona asks this question has to be the male lover. Who are you? So she wants to know the identity. So in some ways, she is contradicting herself. At one time, she is saying that call him by no name. So the identity is not required. But here, she finds that the identity of the male is required because names are associated with identities as an identity marker. Okay. And the answer is, in some ways, a great revelation for us. The answer from the male addressee is, it is I, not any name, but a male pronoun. This is very important. Because the addressee is male, obviously, even though the answer is I, the first person, gender neutral pronoun, personal pronoun, because the addressee is male, obviously this I is the male I. What kind of a male I? A male I who can give norms, who can exact submission, who can categorize, who can tame. Okay. It is I. Go on.
Anywhere and everywhere I see the one who calls himself I in this world. He is tightly packed like the sword in its sheath. Sheath.
Okay. So the male I is very, very confident in the assertion of his identity, because it is a male identity. This male I is tightly packed, accommodated, accepted, promoted, praised by society and given the pride of place, because he is like a sword in his sheath, tightly packed. Along with the sexual implication of the sword in a sheath, there is also the implication of a well-fitting social place for the male. If we recall how bad and how destructive the experience of the female I has been, we can obviously find out a contrast between the treatment of the society meted out to the male on the one hand and the female on the other. Okay, go on.
It is I who drink lonely drinks at 12 midnight in hotels of strange towns. It is I who laugh. It is I who make love and then feel shame. It is I who lie dying with a rattle in my throat. I am sinner, I am saint. I am the beloved and the betrayed. I have no joys which are not yours, no aches which are not yours. I too call myself I.
Okay. In contrast to the male I, there is also a female I. In the true Bakhtinian sense, we can detect the presence of a dialogue between the contending discourses, the contending male and female voices. And the peculiarity about a dialogue is that of the two contending voices, each one tries to dominate the other, each one tries to silence the other and turn the dialogue into a monologue. Because of the partial treatment, because of the subjective treatment that the patriarchal society hands out to the male I and the female I, the female I has to get a raw deal. What does she get? She laughs. Even that laughter is some kind of a defiant act. She makes love. But what is the ultimate result of this act? She feels shame. She has to drink the lonely drinks because she is not accepted like her male counterpart by this society. In hotels of strange towns. So, in place of home, there is hotel. In place of hometown, there are strange towns. In place of companionship, there is loneliness. In place of evening and early night, there is midnight. Obviously, all the sinister implications are there for us to understand or detect. so far as the one person's feeling of shame is concerned. My dear friends, we have to understand that the shame itself is a social construct. It is a cultural given. What is shameful in one culture may not be shameful in another culture. So it is considered to be shameful on the basis of space and time, on the basis of social assumptions, cultural assumptions. And because shame is often the lot of the desiring, daring woman persona, often her predicament, her plight, her fate is to die with a rattle in her throat. So, society not only gives her a raw deal, society not only categorizes her or women like her, society often even strangles her, or women for that matter, of whom she is the representative. And that is why she has to die with a rattle in her throat. So often, social conventions, customs, practices, and cultural assumptions lead to the strangulation of women, their voices. Here, we may again be reminded of those dangerous social decree, that social decree, don't write in English. And also, choose a name, a role. So society had given her threats. And sometimes society does not only bark, it bites. And the defiant, deviant female persona is fated to die, to be strangled. And that is why she is the sinner and the saint. Who makes her the sinner? Who makes her the saint? Society. Male-dominated, patriarchal society, who reserves categories for women, either saintly or sinning. Ultimately, the judgment lies with the male categorizers. Again, the categories. I am the beloved and the betrayed. Both Anisur Rahman and I.G. Ahmed have pointed out how these deverbal adjectives, beloved, betrayed, these deverbal adjectives point out the status of the woman as that of a commodity, that of an object. Something is done to her. She is not the active agent. Even though all her joys, all her sorrows, all her fears, all her experiences, all her desires are like the male counterparts. The treatment she receives at the hands of the society leaves much to be desired. So the poem ends with, on the one hand, a despairing cry, I too call myself I. Even though she is also a human being, she is treated in such a bad way by society. On another level, however, this statement, I too call myself I, may also be the clarion call of a final rebellion. The self-assertion of a woman who has ever got a raw deal from society, because she, like her male counterparts, is another individual. Just as she has dared the society, defied the society, and written poetry, and that too in English, she has enough guts to lead her own life. So an introduction is not the end of the poetic journey. On the other hand, it is the hint of things to come. It is the poetic manifesto that can show us in which channels the poetic endeavor of Kamala Das may be channelized in future. I hope this discussion will help you in understanding the poem and raising pertinent questions that I will be too happy to answer. So if you find this helpful, you can subscribe to the channel, and you can also post comments and queries that I will be very happy to answer. Thanks for watching.